Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect.
Well, I was gonna say it's about time you get back to work, but considering the wage you get, Mike, I'm not gonna say anything. So, how you doing, my man?
It is about time we get back to work.
Yeah, it
Everything's
is.
good. Yeah, this is exciting times. There's stuff to talk about. It's not
Mike,
just speculating and not just what if and not just we can't wait for this. There's a lot of stuff here right now.
we're going to have lots of reaction on everything going on in the pool world, including what was a great single elimination at the UK Open. It's been wild since the beginning, Mike, and well, I don't want to say it ended today, but it got down to final 16 and what an epic match on TV table with the USA's own Tyler Styer defeating Josh Filler. What was your take on that match, Mike? Did you get to watch any of it?
Oh yeah, I watched the whole thing. It was really a terrific match. I started wondering at the beginning of it. I said, I'd love to see Tyler win. I started thinking, who's the last player other than Shane from the U.S. to beat Josh in an Open? You got Raymond, our buddy Raymond Linares from Derby City.
Obvious,
In one of the big international Open events, I'm not sure I can remember another American player beating Josh. Not in the last 5 years.
Well, let's find out if our guest knows. He's a pretty good student of the game. I heard he can hit the ball all right. He seems to be hitting the ball all right there in the UK Open. Tyler Styer, welcome back to the show, buddy. How are you?
What's going on, boys? Doing good.
Hey, what's new?
Yeah, how you hitting them, buddy?
How you hitting them?
Playing Naokio tomorrow.
Let's talk about the match from today, man. To walk me through that heavyweight fight between you and Josh. You showed you were able to handle some adversity pretty well out there, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The scratch at 7-4 was brutal. And we all know how he gets. He's the best player in the world for a reason, because no lead ever feels safe. I found that out at the World Games a couple of years ago. Lost to him there. I had a lead on him at the U.S. Open. I beat Federer in the last 64. Then I had Josh, and I missed a 5 or 6 ball to I think get a 3-game lead, and he took off there, of course. So I haven't beaten him since Moscone in like 2021, 2022 or something like that.
Yeah. How does it feel to get across that finish line?
Yeah, great. It's just more of a battle against yourself, right? I mean, he's not going to play perfect every time. You know what I mean? You figure he's going to make 2, maybe 3 mistakes if he has a tough layout, and he's just, if he's got easy layouts, he's not going to make 1 mistake, right? So, pool 9 ball's a bit of a dumb game. You know what I mean? After the break, who knows what's going to happen? So it really is. I mean, it's
a little gaffy. Yeah. Lots based on luck, and the break is so tough, and all these things.
It seems like you always get hooked on the break at the best times ever, and you scratch 2 rails on the side when you're up 7-4. But if you just think about it long run, it's going to even out over time. The good rolls are going to come, the bad rolls are going to come, and just try to just ignore the bad ones as good as you can and appreciate the good ones.
Well, he caught the bad break too. Finally he took over the lead 8-7 and then scratched on the break and never got back to the table. And that's kudos to you for not letting them back in. You had the run out at 8-8 was great. And then that layout had to look pretty juicy when you broke it 9-8.
It was a dream.
Yeah. I tried to mess it up a little bit, but it's tough. It's easy to get ahead of yourself in that situation, right?
It's got to be.
Sitting, and then I make the 2. I get weird on the 3, and then his cues tip over because he's always moving in the chair when he's over there when someone's at the table. So his cues tip over, of course, when I have a tough shot.
Tell us how you really feel, buddy.
I mean, I'll be honest. Nobody seems to want to say it. He's not the most still player when you're playing against him. I'll say it. It's fine. Whether he did that on purpose or not this time, I don't know. but he's not always the most still in his chair when you're playing, and it makes him even tougher to be the best player in the world, and then stuff like that can happen sometimes. So yeah, I mean, the 3-ball did rattle. I killed it. I didn't want to go back and forth with topspin because it's going to make the pocket play a little bit smaller. So I killed it, knowing that the pocket's going to play a little bit bigger. But yeah, I was able to get through it. So, yeah.
So tell me, going into this match, I know that you told at least one person around that arena that, even before your round of 64, that you wanted Josh in the round of 32. And
Yeah.
So this win, what percentage of it was for you? What percentage of it was to send a message to him and other players? And what percentage of it was with Mosconi Cup in your mind?
I honestly don't. I really don't think about Mosconi that much. I'm rooming with Sam, so of course that's all Sam wants to talk about. And yeah, he's a little bit bummed out right now because he's trying to make the World Championships and get in the top 100. So Shane Tyree, see if we can get Sam a spot at the World Championships. Now that WPA and Matchroom are
he deserves a spot. Kid's playing great.
He does deserve a spot. He's working his ass off. And let's try to get him out there because I think he needed to get to last 16 to get 4,000 to break the top 100. So yeah, Sam and I have been talking a lot in the room. But to answer your question, I mean, growing up, you want to play the best players in the world on the biggest stage, and that's what tonight was. Obviously, it's not Mosconi Cup, but it's Sky Sports TV table Matchroom against the best player in the world. So of course I look forward to it. Obviously, the draw is a little bit tough. I'm not gonna ignore that. But yeah, I love getting out there playing guys like Shane and Federer and Sky and Josh and the best players in the world.
Yeah. Do you see any of that stuff online, Tyler? When draw comes out and Filler's stealing, he's got a cakewalk to final 16, and do you pay attention to any of that social media stuff at all?
If I'm at the airport and I'm bored and I'm scrolling through my phone, I might see some stupid stuff like that. But when I'm at a tournament, dude, I'm eating ribeyes and taking naps and getting ready for my matches and stuff like that, having a coffee. So I really don't. But I said this after my match. I seen some people saying that I left Predator and to go to Mucci for the money, and anybody, you can buy anybody nowadays. So I went to Mucci for a very, very specific reason.
I don't think they know how much of a stickler you are for your cues.
Yeah, really.
Anybody was saying stuff like that.
I thought everybody knew that.
I am one of the pickiest players for sure. So God bless Mucci for putting up with me for the last couple months. But I know if they can make me happy, that we're going to make the best cue in the world, and I'm very serious about that. So yeah, there were just people saying that I switched for the money, and I was like, you know what? All right, you'll see. You'll see. So
yeah, big win.
Usually, Tyler, you're real business focused and on to the next one, and it's not a big deal at this point in the tournament. But you seem to just mentally not be so much pressure. You were kind of red a little bit there early on, and I was like,
you cut out there, Mike. Yes, get a little bit, get it further from your mic.
I was going to say, we've seen you at points just handle pressure differently, but in this matchup, you seem to just weather it all pretty well. What's clicked for you mentally?
You just have to put yourself out there, really. When I was younger, I did not deal with pressure very well at all. I think a lot of people know that. Couldn't play for money. Anytime the heart gets racing a little bit, I'd figure out a way to mess it up. And I think learning how to win is a skill, and I think so many people use that as an excuse. You either got it or you don't. You're born with it or you're not. It's crap. You gotta search. Some people can learn it faster, but you have to learn how to win. It's a skill. So any junior out there that's struggling, under pressure and stuff, keep putting yourself in those situations as much as you can, and just try to get used to it. You're never going to be comfortable, but you have to kind of get comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So you're going to fail so many times if you're going to get to this level. So don't let it get you down, and just keep fighting. That's all I can tell them.
Could you tell a difference in the way you were handling it toward the end of the match?
I could.
I wanted it so bad from the beginning.
Yeah.
It slipped a little bit when what do you win 4 in a row to go up 8-7?
Yeah.
As soon as he scratched, I was like, all right, let's go. I clicked. I was right back in that space again. So I got fortunate. Did he go off of a ball and scratch?
Yeah.
He got in. So I mean, he doesn't kick in. He goes up, 9-7. I might not get to the table again. So it's just
but the same way we talk about these big guys closing gaps and always coming for you, you were that guy this time, handling adversity and never giving up. Those are things that we say about Shane, about Federer, about Filler, over and over and over again. And, you have every excuse in the book to go and dog it, I guess. But that was, to weather that and to finish it off, like Mike said, I mean, you scratched in the side, you run out that one and then run out again at 9-8. I mean, that's showing a lot about you, man, and your maturity and your game more than anything.
Yeah, and trusted my gut. I don't think I played the right shot every time, but I played the shot that I saw first. And there's a lot of ways to run out. So sometimes, like, I looked at it, I was like, do this, and then I was like, but that's not, like, this is the right shot. And then I was like, I don't care, do it. That's the first shot you saw. That's the shot that your gut wants you to shoot. Shoot it. I had a shot. I don't know what the score was, but I could have played it with a level cue and followed it one rail and up, or I could jack up and spear it in with low outside and go one rail and over. I don't remember what the score was, but my gut said jack up and draw it. So
I think I remember it. That was when you went ahead like 7-4. That was probably when it was like 6-4, 5-4, something around there.
On the rail. It was like a full table shot.
Yeah, jacked up off the side of them.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, so the reason I like the Mucci so much is it has a little bit of give, where previous stuff that I used was a little bit stronger, a little stiffer, and it was hard on certain shots, and I felt like my game plateaued a little bit. Like powering a ball, if I'm straight in and I got to create angles and stuff, I could do all that, but I have a big stroke anyways. I can kind of do that with any cue. So to get something where I'm really prioritizing cue ball control. I feel like if my safeties get better and my cue ball gets as good as it was in that match, I'm going to be really tough to deal with. And like I said, I left in August last year, and it took me 6 months to figure out which company I was going to go to. I could have signed a big deal right before Moscone and made a payday and, done all that. But I didn't really want to switch until after that. So, yeah.
Well, good. It looked today like you made a pretty good decision. And it looked like they made a pretty good decision too. So
absolutely.
I hope it works out well for both of you. Yeah.
Where does this rank for you in terms of wins in your career, Tyler?
Definitely up there. Against Federer, I was down 7-5 at the U.S. Open. He scratched and I ran the set out. That was a pretty big match. That was on YouTube table 1. It wasn't the main table because at the U.S. Open they don't play on the main table until the last 16. But David Elkaty, the finals of the Kremlin Cup. Yeah. Niels at Moscone. I beat Josh at the Moscone. But this is top 5 or 6. It's up there for sure.
Yeah. It's great.
All right, so what's the plan the rest of the evening where you don't get too high, too low, and come in tomorrow ready to go?
Is there a routine?
I got a reservation for a ribeye very shortly.
All right, well, you go get after it, man. Congratulations on a great final, or at least run to the final 16. Big win over Josh. Mike, you got anything else, buddy?
No. Good luck tomorrow against Naoki Oi. That'll be. I'm not sure if they posted times on that yet, but that'll be on WNT TV.
Yep.
If everybody wants to zero in on that, I'm sure it'll be one of the featured names.
I got something to say really quick.
Yeah.
Thanks to my family, Margaret, and everybody I know they were watching. Really good friends, Rich and Sue, my agent Jess, Joe and Chance from down south were probably watching. Let's see, Darren from Jacksonville. I got a really, really small circle, but I got some really, really good people around me that I know are supporting me all the time. So
I'm sure they were all dialed in.
I couldn't do it without them. So thank you guys.
Yeah, great.
Congratulations, Tyler. Keep up the run, buddy. Last American standing, Tyler Styer. Appreciate it, pal.
Thanks. Have a good night, guys.
See ya.
Well, Mike.
It was a really entertaining match. I mean, they did not you know, both of them played really well. And, you know, that period where Josh came back to take the lead, you know,
That's
Josh
what
was
Josh
just
does.
Josh plays really good pool. I mean, because he wasn't running out. You know,
Yeah.
he was, and when you start chasing his safety game, you're in trouble because he does not miss locking you down, not too
No.
much.
No.
So Tyler just spent a couple of games kicking and hoping, um, and but then that scratch at 8-7 on the break, and that's where you gotta put Josh in that chair then and just leave him there, and that's what Tyler did. So kudos to him. Again, that run out at 8-8 was really big. I wanted to ask him about what went, how far up in his throat his heart went on a couple of those shots in the last two racks that just really took their time getting into the pocket.
Yeah, but he seemed like at least the optics from the chair, he looked like he was ready for it no matter what. Like even as Josh is closing the lead, even as he was going up 7-4, when Josh breaks, like usually you'll see Tyler, or at least at points in his career, you've seen Tyler maybe overthink shots too much
Yeah, right.
or
No doubt about it.
or let them
Overamp
yeah,
on a shot.
yeah. And he seemed like he was okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And he did it. I mean, hell,
He
he
stayed
did it.
he stayed pretty well in line, on his shots. He was hitting them speed wise. He really looked good. And between racks, I noticed they both go up and take the balls out, put them on the table. And Tyler's his eyes were always right on the ground. He was not looking up. He was not looking around. He was not
That's so
looking.
Tyler, man. Like
He was just going back and getting ready for the next break. So yeah, it was really entertaining match. It was really fun to watch. It was to see a guy like Tyler take down Josh where they're both playing really well. That was pretty good television.
yeah, I mean, you can't take anything away from him, like maybe saying, filler shit the bed or both
Yeah,
of them
right.
being terrible or whatever. Like
Control,
it wasn't
whatever. I mean, yeah,
the standard was great, by both players. Tyler to go up 7-4, the beginning of that match, how it was nip and tuck, 4-4, I think it was 2-2, things like that. It was like he just sat there, handled his business. And I've seen him like in points of his career, whether he's playing Mosconi Cup or playing whatever tournament, he'll be very stoic and just, trying to be as emotionless as possible. But I feel like sometimes maybe it's too thought through in that regard.
yeah,
Whereas this time it just seemed like, what, he was there, he was very much in the
yeah. It's
moment.
natural. Yeah,
Yeah, and he didn't press, unnecessarily or whatever. And there was a maturity there, and you kind of saw him take a step. But there's been like heartbreak leading up to it, and you heard him as much say that, whether it was the World Games or
yeah, right.
other, we heard last year, or not heard last year, but like he had that big loss against Shane whenever he was up deep in the tournament. Like he's been knocking on the door. Now this isn't like a major victory in terms of a tournament yet, but it's certainly going to build that confidence. And we saw it last year with Robbie Capito have big wins over Federer and Filler, and he parlayed that into a UK Open win.
Uh,
Can
Tyler's
Tyler
never
do the same?
Tyler's never been short on confidence. It's just backing it up. It's
Yeah.
that's been a little bit short, and I think that this kind of um, he's got the ability. He's got a great game. And obviously we all know he's got a break that can compete with anybody. That can keep him in there against anybody. So he just needs a couple more wins like this to make it seem like more of a natural thing for him, where he starts to expect it of himself.
I can't wait to see, how tomorrow's going to shape up for him. Like this was a huge win, no doubt about it for Tyler.
Yeah,
And you're on TV table against the defending, major Open champion in Josh. You know their history. It doesn't get any bigger than this, Mike, unless you're playing like in a semifinal or a final of a
right,
tournament.
right.
But right now there's already no safety net. The guy already took away the lead that you had. Tyler showed some balls in that match
Yeah,
and some heart, man. You can't take that away from him. And so, I you know what, given the field, and when I saw the bracket yesterday, Mike, I thought there was two traps for Filler. Actually, every one of those rounds would have been a trap for him, in my opinion, because I think Can beat Josh, gave him his one loss during Derby City, if I remember right. So and obviously they know each other, both being from
right.
Germany. If Tyler got through, which he was a favorite somewhat in that matchup in his first round, you can't, like, intangibles matter. And we know what kind of killer Josh is, but like Tyler believes. You know what I mean? Whether he had the game in the past to back it up or not, he believes, and now today anyway, he showed that he's got the game to more than back it up.
And you knew going into the match against Joshua was personal for Tyler. I don't know. I mean, it might be for everybody who plays filler. I don't know. Who Josh played in the round. Maybe it was personal to him too. You know, he really was chomping at the bit to play him and got run over. Who knows? But for someone, Tyler, it's kind of a trap thing because you know that it's a personal thing to Tyler, and he was going to take it very seriously. So now you just you look at tomorrow and you're like, he's not getting to a ton of final 16, so you can't think that he's going to look ahead or that he's going to lose his edge now because he beat Josh and whatever. He's got a big match for now, but he's got Naoki Oi, who's been playing great this year, really well. But that's a match that he can win.
You come off a match against filler. I think you're supposed to win against Naoki. I thought Wojciech, if Wojciech got through, it was going to be a much tougher matchup for either player.
Everybody would always worry about coming off a win over filler and having a letdown. No, regardless of what you tell yourself, the adrenaline just might not be the same as it was when you were playing filler. So how do you maintain that? How do you keep at that level? How do you not? Let it affect you. Because, if you look at the final 16, there's no Joshes in the final. I mean, there's Jason and there's Beato as far as the proven champions. Mickey,
say that again.
But
outside of Hanoi, I mean, what am I missing here, Mike?
What about Jason?
Yeah, about Jay. You know what I mean? Carlos.
You know how geared up. You know how geared up they get for him in the UK, and how he's geared up, and he certainly has the talent. Does he have the resume in the Matchroom events? No, I think he's won one. But if you look at that final 16, and you had to say, who are the guys who are the, that the odds makers would put at the top of the list?
Oh, for sure,
Carlo and Jay.
Yeah.
Right.
And listen, not for nothing, but Jason's big game pedigree is pretty stout. That's why he's a Mosconi Cup captain. That's why he thrives into that environment. Being there in the home court, there's going to be a lot more pressure, and all eyes are going to be on Jason because they're going to be hoping he pulls out through out there.
And really, between you and me and everybody else who's listening,
ain't nobody watched the show, Mike.
Jason's had a pretty cushy draw from what I've seen going through this.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But whenever
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's not like he's
no.
It just is what it is. But you haven't seen anywhere like, ooh, this is going to be a real tester for him.
No, I think whenever I saw the draw, I'm thinking Jason, better get his ass to tomorrow because that's the expectation considering that draw and who he is. You know what I mean? Like because he is an A1 player. Even though like in Matchroom majors we haven't seen the best results for him over the years. But I mean, we know, listen, when he comes off of a big straight pull run and he gets in gear, like he doesn't get in gear like Shane and Federer maybe in terms of playing a big gambling match. But Jason, like if he's hitting the ball, look out because when his confidence, his break can be pretty spot on. The moment doesn't get too big for him. It's always been like, and Jason will tell you as much, like he's gotten the shit into draws plenty of times in tournaments, wherever he's matching up with like a Josh in a round of 32 or Leon in a round of 16 or a Copigny or whatever. But now I agree with you. I think you got to go and handle your business tomorrow if you're Jay for sure. I would love to see that matchup, but it's not without like landmines in there. No doubt. But before we transition out on Tyler, I just want to say like whenever you text me as we were getting ready for the show, because I told Mike, I said, let's come on after the round of 32 finishes. Yeah. And then I'm getting ready and I see his text and he's like, we're going to get Tyler on. And I was like, man. And I love Tyler. The one thing I love about him is that he's very like, he doesn't give you any excuses. He doesn't want to be crowned too prematurely, but he also like takes onus and responsibility on whether it's accomplishments or letdowns or whatever. And I was thinking we were going to get this same old, like, oh, it's just another match. Like, give me all these cliches of, on to the next one. But I like that he was able to embrace it. He was able enjoy that moment because that is a pretty big win. At the same time, knowing how focused he is and how business oriented that kid is, I'm excited to see how he's going to parlay that tomorrow, Mike, because that you got to go and handle Naoki Oi, even though he's been pretty consistent lately. I got to say, I like Tyler in that matchup in the round of 16, Mike.
Well, I think that he will settle himself down tonight and say, that was great. That's a big win for me. But now I'm in the final 16. I'm in a position to do something special, right?
Yeah.
I'm in a good spot to, if I play well tomorrow, I can get to that final four. I can play the final day. That would be huge. So I think that, you never know once the match starts, what's going to happen, who's going to be on, who's going to be off, who's going to just, how the ball's going to roll. But I think mentally he'll be ready going into tomorrow to say, this is an opportunity to, last American standing, reach the final four, something like that would be a huge accomplishment for him.
Yeah, for me, Mike, mentally is not the question, because if I saw him, if how he played today is going to be that same Tyler that shows up tomorrow.
Well, yeah, that's how many matches. Yeah. How many matches have we seen like that where the next day wasn't the same match?
No, for sure, but usually it's like as it gets more ramped up against bigger names. It doesn't get any bigger of a name in single elimination against Josh Filler on a TV table of the second major of the year, Mike. You know what I mean? Like, and listen, he's coming off of an invitation to PLP where he's getting in TV table stroke. He's getting more opportunity, but more importantly, he's making the best of it. And he showed that today, and you can't take anything away from that because it wasn't anything where Josh handed it to him by any means. Tyler went and took it like the big boys go and take it, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. Be really anxious to see how he does tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to that match.
Tyler was through to the round of 64. Sky was the other American, I think, who was through along with Sam Henderson. Mike, we saw a lot of Americans drop out early in this tournament, but
yeah, we did. That wasn't great, but
yeah. Overall, like as you're looking at it from the bigger picture in terms of what that landscape could be like for Team USA, what are your thoughts given where we're at today?
Still a long way to go. Obviously, I mean, you got that we know of. You've got U.S. Open, Florida Open, Hanoi. A lot of opportunity for these for the American players. Yeah, there's still a long way to go on Team USA. I think Tyler, this is if he can get to that final 8, final 4, big step in the right direction for him, because I think it's going to be really going to be tight this year on wildcard picks.
Well, at the end of the year, wins like this are how we start like tallying. You know what I mean?
Right.
Who's where?
No doubt about it. It's a big feather in your cap.
Oh, without a doubt it is. And so that's going to serve him really well come the end of the year. Like I said about Tyler, and this as much, it's like he never gets too high of high or too low of low when it comes to things, and that maturity level. And you talked about like him not lacking confidence. I think it's just like this belief that he has in his game, and whether or not it shows up at the end of a tournament is one thing, but you see steps, Mike. You know what I mean? Coming up short against Shane, whenever you had a lead. And you talked about the World Games, him being in that position and being ahead of Josh. All these things like he remembers. But I've been a firm believer, and I listen to like a lot of like whether it's affirmations or positive things with athletes and things like that. And one of them comes to mind. It was Federer, and so and Roger saying, you know what, like the only thing that separates me is how I've handled the losses. It's like being able to get back up whenever you come up short. And so for Tyler to be able to, take that next step is pretty awesome. Hopefully he can continue that though, Mike, and all eyes.
I hope so. I mean, we the thing with Tyler and I think we talked about it a little bit earlier this year, at least I mentioned it, was, how much longer are we going to have to wait for Tyler? It's been that like he's getting ready to take the next step thing since 19, right?
Yeah.
So been waiting for him to kind of break through to that next level on a more consistent basis. So again, a big run here, 2 more wins tomorrow to get him to the final day. Then it's all icing if you can do that. That would be a huge step for him. So
Let's bring up the final 16, Mike. Start up top. If you guys can see the screen there, Georgie against Fraser Patrick. Not the last guy from the UK you would have thought of. Actually, he's from Scotland.
He's a Scottish guy. I think he's like 39, 40 years old. Been around for a while. Snooker player.
He's had some solid fucking wins, Mike, in this tournament. I know he went to the one loss side pretty early, but I think he took out who was it? He took out, besides Kachi, he takes out Mark, if I'm not mistaken. What was it was a pretty big name before that matchup against Kachi, but
Kachi out. Mark who?
Well, I thought you were gonna. No, I don't remember the name. I'll find it though, Mike. But pretty big win. Georgie, we know he's shown consistency like in regional events and things like that. Pretty solid performance up until this point from him. You got to like him though in that matchup up top though, Mike.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Actually, I think it's going to be pretty even. I think it's a pretty even match. I mean, this guy obviously can play.
Well, when you transition to TV table, I think that's when it'll separate just a little bit, Mike, and how the break can be different, how you can go and adjust depending on how the table is playing. I'm not saying Georgie's got a ton of experience.
Yeah, I'd say it's going to be kind of a new experience for him too. I like that kid a lot. He's been working really hard at his game in the past year, and he's made a lot of big strides. I'm happy to see him in the final 16. Good player, nice kid. So, that's but I think they're both going to, feel their way through it. So, yeah, we'll see what comes out of that. Then right beneath them is Pius and Mickey. That's a really interesting matchup.
That's a great matchup, Mike. That's an absolutely great matchup. These are two guys with a chip on their shoulder. One of them's gotten there already in Mickey in terms of a major and making that European team. If you were going to go down a list, it wouldn't take very far before you get to Pius in terms of consistency over the last 2 years, Mike.
No, I mean, he's right up there. If you look at, European players' points right now, he's right up there in the top 5 European players.
Oh, 100%. Steven was the one. Yeah, he makes it. This is what I was talking about, Mike, was Tucher. Marco's a great player. Yeah, Marco. Yeah. And he always plays big in matchroom events. Solid wins for Fraser Patrick, man. It's like you can't clock the guy's game because we haven't seen him play enough, but that's what makes him super dangerous as well.
He's made a couple of final 16s, this has been a few years, but a couple of final 16s in snooker ranking events. I mean, the big events. So that, guy like that, you don't expect him to miss much. It's just, does he have the savvy for all 9-ball nuance, things like that. But he's not going to miss an open pocket. You could probably bank on that.
Pius coming off a win over Max Lechner, Mickey coming off a win over Mark Biesterbosch. Mike, solid win for both guys.
Yep.
Look, Mickey's break is devastating playing 9-ball, Mike. And like we talked about before, in terms of like how he can step up on the big stage and all these things, I think he's exercised some of those demons. But Pius is hungry. I don't like both these guys are easy to root for, Mike.
Yeah.
And I think Mickey, if you can call it like if he can be any safer, it's one thing. But I know he still has a lot of things that he wants to prove. I'm hoping Pius wins the matchup just to see how he can parlay that and continue that run, though, if I'm being honest with you. It's not to say that Mickey ain't going to come away with that victory because he's more than capable and he's been there before. But I think
we're both big Pius fans and have been looking, rooting for him to make a breakthrough in the event. And if you look where he's at in the bracket, 2 matches tomorrow, he's got, he's pretty close to even money to get through 2 matches tomorrow. I mean,
well, for sure. I like the winner of that matchup to win the following one. No disrespect to the guys up top, but
but every time we say this at one of these tournaments, who wins?
No, then it'll end up being like Fraser Patrick and Pius Labutus are going to come through, and then we're going to look like a bunch of idiots like we normally are, Mike.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. But no, I feel that way. I'd love to see Pius win. I'd love to see him make the final day. That would be terrific.
Jason Shaw against Ticon Mike, one of the pride left of the Vietnamese.
Yeah, there's 3 Vietnamese players in the final 16.
Well, 2 of them are facing each other, and we'll get to those guys here a little bit later on.
Yeah, right. That's too bad. That's too bad.
I love it in terms of having 3 and 16 is solid because that market needs to have bigger guys go and step up to go and help continue to ride that wave that they have out there in Vietnam, Mike.
Yeah.
They announced the Hanoi Open again, going to happen in October, which I'm excited about. I'm going to be there again, Mike. I can't wait to go back to Vietnam. But are you going to go?
I'm close.
No. Come on, Mike. We gotta you're Tyler right now, and it's 9-8. We got to get you across the finish line, buddy. We got to get you over to Vietnam. It's a great experience, Mike. I can't wait to go back. Jason, though, if you're in this spot, I'd say you got to go and handle your business here, Mike. And I know it's a tough matchup, and he's coming off of that match with Federer, so you can tell he's in gear. But man, I gotta really like Jason in this round of 16, Mike. If I'm being honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, he, like I said, he's been in a pretty good spot. Last couple rounds, I think he's where he's pretty comfortable match wise. So we'll see. He's got figuring to be the favorite in this, but these are those guys that can jump up and bite you.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to be able to handle those expectations as well, and Jason knows, how more eyes are going to continue to be on him as this tournament progresses, because he's box office. He's the pride of Matchroom. He's the pride of this tournament, the junior events named after him. And like you mentioned, he was in a pretty good spot. I think he still is, at least in this round, a good spot. But that round right below, I mean, that matchup right below, Mike, I think it's a huge trap. Jonas is unreal right now. Snagaki's coming off a big win as well. You got to like Jonas, though, as the flavor of the week, Mike. Do you think this kid's going to slow down any tomorrow?
I wouldn't count on it. I mean, yeah, he's playing confident. He's playing loose. He's playing really well. We know he's got talent. So, when we talked before this event started, I think he was one of the names that we picked, to come through here based on how, who was guys who were coming in riding a good form. It was him. It was Mickey. Guys like Victor. These guys they've got a shot for the reason that they're playing. They've been playing really well, more than just this tournament.
On one hand, Mike will say, all bets are off in major tournaments because it can be pretty wacky at times and, very unpredictable. And then on the other hand, you can talk about like certain recipes that you got to have together in order to give yourself the best chance. And Jonas has all those things. But with that, Mike, comes expectations. And he's an unproven commodity in terms of that European landscape and where he's going to go and rank in there. I think given the expectations, he certainly has lived up to it. But the job is far from done. He's in a really good spot here to continue his run. Those first 2 matchups were brutal, Mike. Him beating Mario is a solid win. Snagaki coming off a win over Maciel. I would have probably picked the other 2 guys, Mike. If I'm being honest with you, I would have probably picked Mario He and Daniel Maciel to come through that round of 32.
Right.
But kudos to Jonas and Snagaki. They showed their worth. But with Jonas, like I said, it's different because he's got a really good opportunity to make a move here in this tournament, Mike, and to like pad his resume for the rest of the year with a couple of good wins tomorrow.
Yeah, no, he's in a good spot, and I like his game. He's really fun to watch. He's a solid player, so we'll see what happens there.
You're gonna have to earn it though, Mike, if you're Jonas, but he's the guy that I really want to see how he's going to perform, especially coming up top. It's not going to get any easier for him if you were to continue it. But I tell you what, like if things end up the way that it might, let's say he beats Nagaki, and then you got a TV table matchup in the round of 8 against Jason Shaw. These are the type of wins, Mike, that can start making you arguments for if you're on the fringe looking in, or if you're looking at a guy who steals a 3rd place on Team Europe and how you can justify how he'll handle big pressure situations. Right. So but he's earned it, and especially considering the fact that in this tournament, more than anything, Mike, we talked about guys with expectations and guys who can make moves. There was a lot of players who came up really short, Mike, in this tournament.
Oh,
That out, you know what I mean? That were
buddy,
like
our buddy
old
Moritz,
dogs.
our buddy Moritz didn't do himself any favors.
No, he didn't, and that's what I mean in terms of Jonas, because Jonas is in a good spot 5 months in the year, and now he's making the best of it. Whereas Moritz, we talked about coming up like disappearing in that the Scottish Open.
Right.
He did not do himself any favor in this tournament. My big disappointment for sure, and I think the kid would admit as much.
Yeah.
But it was wacky. Mike Sanjin's out. Kachi was out. A lot of
That's one that floored me. I mean, Kachi did not, pull a bad draw. Kachi got beat by guys you would never think that he's going to lose to with the tournament, with his future in the tournament on the line. So,
no, we liked him going into the tournament, and then if I would have seen that draw, I for sure would have liked them to be playing. Excuse me, be playing today, Mike.
Yeah, for sure.
Big disappointment there for sure, but with that comes opportunity for other guys. Like I said, Jonas, I'm going to be keeping an eye on for sure tomorrow, and how that's going to shape up. Right below that,
another juicy matchup.
It's the pride of Team Reyes Cup, Mike, and how that's going to shape up. We know Aloysius is in a really good spot in terms of rankings, but Carlo is a bad motherfucker, Mike, and so I don't know how else to put it other than by saying you got your hands full, with Carlo Beato in single elimination at this stage of the tournament.
Yeah, you do. He's when he does lose, it seems like he loses early. All of a sudden, he's out of a tournament, before 64 or at 64. When he starts getting this deep, he's hard to push aside.
He really is. And look, you've seen guys take steps in terms of how they handle pressure in bigger moments, and from Yap losing to Ko Ping Chung to having some successes out there in the Asian tournaments for the WNT. I think this is about, like, this could very well be a finals matchup, kind of like how a Mickey and a Pius might end up, could be a finals matchup down the road in a major tournament. But with these two guys being from Asia, the stakes, Carlo wants to make a move. There's opportunity there, it being in Manila every year. But Carlo's a guy that takes pride in his resume, and he's got big wins under his belt, Mike. But this is going to be a big matchup against Aloysius Yap.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a terrific matchup. Yap, just we've watched him a million times. He always looks like he has no confidence. He always looks like he's unsure of himself, and he just keeps winning. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. That's going to be one worth watching for sure.
Carlo dodges Fortunski in the round of 64, beats Simon Curral. After that, Yap's coming off a win over the defending champion Robbie Capito 10-7, and then Nicholas Tan 10-5. Look, if you're going based off of Matchroom results, Carlos won a U.S. Open, but Yap, we've seen him in this stage of the tournament many times.
Yeah.
I'd say it's about as close to a coin flip as you can ask for. Things that you've had about his game in terms of like how he can handle pressure and, he can dog it a little bit or maybe not show confidence. I think Yap has more than exercised those demons, whether on an individual stage or in that Team Asia platform, Mike, in the Reyes Cup.
Yeah.
And so you've kind of seen a maturity there from that kid as well, and like him kind of blossom into a monster in his own right,
I think he's always just been smoke screening us with that, shaking his head, lack of confidence. I didn't play very well stuff. I've heard it so many times. I stopped believing him. I just think that's the way he goes. That's the way his mentality goes through a match.
Yeah. Well, I love the disposition, and he makes it so much easier to root for. Whenever he's like that. I remember that whenever he came up short against Ko Ping Chung, when he ran out the set basically and made every shot, and going up to him, and I've told this story plenty of times, when I went up to Yap after the match, and I said, "How many balls did you end up making?" And he laughed and he says, "Well, I made 9 before the match started," meaning like the warm up rack. You know what I mean?
Practice rack, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but that's who he is. Carlo's a monster. Carlo's in that same category though as a filler, as a Shane, as a Federer. And so this is where it's going to become two big boys battling it out. It's not going to get any easier, Mike, because you got two guys from Vietnam and Pham and Huang right below there. And
Yeah.
I think whoever comes through is going to be fighting with a lot of veracity, Mike, to get through to that semifinal, because there's a lot at stake for these boys being from Vietnam.
It is. And I think, I hate that they're playing each other, but I like that it assures us that there's going to at least be one Vietnamese player in the final 8.
Yeah.
So, whoever wins that match, you have a lot of people cheering for them to reach that final day.
I agree with you. This is exciting for a number of different reasons, Mike. And, you can make an argument where I want to see Wong, and him get more of a comfortable spot as the rankings go on throughout the year. But then, like I mentioned before, I like seeing other guys kind of, get comfortable out there on the big stage, especially being from Vietnam. I think Matchroom absolutely loves it, Mike.
Sure.
Given the market,
Yeah, them playing each other tomorrow, will draw a zillion viewers just itself.
Through the roof, Mike.
Yeah.
Right below that, we talked about guys who have expectations and, wanting to prove a point. Alexa Pachel against Victor Zelinsky. Victor dodges Niels Feijen at a epic hill matchup in this tournament, Mike. And I think Alexa's coming off of a win against Claudio Cacci, who we're both super high on.
Yeah.
How do you peg that matchup, Mike?
It depends on what Victor shows up. I on paper I like Victor, but we've seen Victor get in these spots, and all of a sudden his game just kind of disappears. He put a major hurting on Imran today, so hopefully he carries that through tomorrow. We're both big fans of his. Would love to see him play on the final day as well. So I like Alexa a lot. He's got a really solid game, but personally, I'll be pulling for Victor here.
Let me know who you guys think is going to be in the finals in the chat. Anybody who guesses it right that I can go back and verify, we'll send you a nice little care package. I got a bunch of stuff that we can ship out to you. Pick the final, and I'm going to put you to that test here in a little bit, Mike. Look, this matchup for me is really interesting because this has been like the story of the tournament. Are guys who kind of like exercise demons and who have expectations and living up to them. Right. Tyler comes to mind and living up to expectations and making the best of a tough opportunity. Jonas as well. You can make an argument for Georgie, even Mickey and Pius, Mike. Right. But we haven't seen Alexa since that semifinal 2 years ago at the U.S. Open. And Victor, we know what kind of expectations are on him. They've been on him for the last, 3 years now, Mike? Maybe 2.5 years, something like that. He looked different, though. Just like Tyler looked different against Filler, Victor looked different against Niels. He had that same, quiet confidence about him. He didn't get too emotional whenever, he was struggling because there were points in that matchup whenever, the tide did not go his way. But it was how he was handling himself in the chair, and as the adversity was showing its face against Victor is what really got me inspired and thinking that this might be his time to make a good run, Mike.
I hope so. I mean, I hope you're right. I'd love to see him, like I said, reach that final day would be a good match.
Jojo says Oy is going to be in the final. He's going to have his hands full there. That's for sure against that matchup against Tyler Styer. Who do you like coming through there at the bottom, Mike?
Who do I like? It's really good. I mean, this is a wide open final 16, really.
Okay, I tell you what.
You're going to pick Carlo because you're going to go chalk.
No, hold on. Wait, time out. I want to stop you right there. Let's start up top, and then give me who you think is going to be in the final 8, or no, in the final 4 up top, Mike, and then we'll finish off at the bottom.
4 out of the top. So 2 out of the top, 2 out of the bottom.
Right. Yeah. That's usually how the final 4 works, Mike.
Well, 4 out of the top 8. I'm going to say Jonas.
Okay.
And Mickey.
Wait, say that again. Jonas and Mickey.
Yep.
Okay.
On the bottom, I'm going to say Victor and Duong.
Wow, Victor and Duong. I hope so, man. For the sake of Vietnam and the Vietnamese fans, I'm hoping it is going to be Huang. He's coming off a big win himself, Mike, over AJ Manis, which is pretty blockbuster and
Yeah.
expectations on both sides. And so, and Huang got lucky, I think, in this tournament to get through at an earlier round. And so we'll see how he can parlay that. Victor and Huang, that's a pretty. I say that's pretty out there, Mike. Up top, up top. I think like my
Who picks Shane every time, you know.
You're Mr. Shane and Federer every single time, literally every single tournament. Look, Mike, up top, I'm gonna give you like two answers here, and it's gonna be my head and my heart. Okay, so
Now,
my
now, if either your head or your heart wins, you're gonna act like you're a genius.
no. I'm not gonna hedge here. I'm gonna settle on one, but I just wanna give a little bit of background here. So my head is with you. Like if I think about all the guys who have been consistent and who've been playing so well, and you know how that's gonna carry them through, it's Mickey and Jonas. You know, Mickey and Jonas have been proven commodities in regionals, and in Mickey's case, in a major, in the biggest stages, like I mentioned before. I'd love to see those two guys out there. That's what my head's telling me that it should be. My heart, though, and the wackiness of sports and how the tournament's going to shape up is that I'm hoping it's a Pius and a Jason matchup. I think either way it comes through, that matchup between Pius and Mickey, if I'm being honest with you, because I think both those guys are going to be tough on the tail end of this tournament. Both coming off of really good wins.
If it's Jonas and Mickey coming out of there, you could be looking at what the future of Team Europe looks like for some years to come.
100%. 100%, and it's going to put a lot of veterans on their heels if a kid like Jonas goes and gets pretty comfortable.
They all know these guys are nipping at their heels now.
There's a lot of tough Spaniards, though, Mike. We saw a lot of them in this tournament.
Yeah, sticking with the same guys making Team Europe until they're 45. I think those days are gone.
Well, we said that before, and then it's like every year it's the same proven vets who are still there, and they're earning it, Mike. They're not even there like on a wild card. David's earning his spot on there 20 years later.
It's gonna be a little tougher this year. I mean, you look at someone like Fran missing one or two majors. That's a lot of ground to make up.
How do you think that's going to hurt him on the back end, Mike?
We'll find out. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of ground to make up. You're going to have to go and snap one off or finish deep in two or three if you want to make up that kind of ground.
I hope for the sake of the chaos of it all that Jonas does pull through and make a lot of guys uncomfortable, because he's in a position where with a solid tournament in the UK, in a major tournament and the prize funds and all that, this could really boost them up. All eyes are going to be on him. I think it comes through. I think it will be Mickey and Jonas though, Mike. If I'm picking just in the overall, but down below, look,
you're not going to make a living agreeing with me, buddy.
Lord, don't I know it? Look, down below, I can go like 8 different ways, Mike.
Yeah, you sure can.
Like you can literally make an argument so many different routes with either of these guys. What my head and my heart is telling me is that Victor's going to come through on the bottom. I'll start there. I think that he's like Tyler, and I hope it is him and Tyler in the round of 8, because that's going to be a good matchup with guys with a big chip on their shoulder and a lot to prove.
Yeah.
And with Victor, it's more of just living up to those expectations. Tyler would be in a little bit more comfortable spot, playing for a spot on Team USA, although now his eyes are going to be on a major. I think, like I said, it will be Victor, but up top, Mike, Yap and Carlo, flip the coin. Huang and Nam, flip a coin.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Yap, just because he's been so consistent lately. It's hard to bet against them.
No, that's a solid pick. Yeah.
But then again, it's like, well, it's Carlo, Mike. I mean, it's fucking Carlo Beato there. Like, what are you going to do? It's opportunity for a lot of guys. It's spots to go and make yourself more comfortable, whether you got something to prove or this is your territory already in terms of veterans.
This is how you start getting yourself on all those Matchroom posters for the rest of the year when they start announcing.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. I mean, look, whenever Tyler gets announced for PLP, I thought it was going to be Billy when I first saw their little teaser. Tyler gets picked for it, okay, and then now he's parlaying that in a big win. over filler. You know what I mean? Jonas, you win some regionals. You parlay that with consistency in the UK. Like, you go and take it, Mike, and that's what those big boys do. And we talked about that before. Is that you take it based off of big wins, and man, these guys are in really good spots here, Mike.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you guys can check out all the action at WNT.tv. I've been paying that one, and I've been sweating like 2 or 3 matches at a time, Mike. It's been great, you know.
It is great. I mean, it is great. I do too. I open up like 2 or 3 windows and just start spreading them all over my screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's WNT TV. It is a good deal. It's a good gig.
Who's winning the UK Open, Mike?
I'm sorry.
Who's winning the UK Open?
Who's winning the UK Open? I'll pick someone I didn't pick for the Final Four.
Oh, here we go. So you're gonna have like 4 players plus an extra one. All right.
Who's winning the US? Who's winning the UK Open? Shit, I don't know. I really. I'll take a flyer and go Jonas.
It's a pretty good pick, Mike. It's a pretty good pick. I was gonna go that route too, if I'm being honest with you. I'm going, although I'm gonna end up going with the guy right below him though, in Yap. I think either way, that matchup in the final 16 is the more premier one. In terms of heavyweights, and it's kind of brutal, especially considering the draw that both these guys are in that spot at this point.
Right.
But
you look at the rest of the field and you're like, wait a second, why isn't this later?
Yeah, because if they were in different spots, you know who you would end up picking them to get through the Final Four. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
You want to say hi? Wave. There you go. Say hi to Uncle Mike. Yeah, I'm going with the Yap, Mike, but literally out of every guy who's left here, I mean, you can probably make an argument for a solid 6 or 7 of them at least.
Yeah, 5 or 6 for sure.
You know,
Fraser Patrick's probably not on your list.
Listen, I've seen wackier things go and happen in sports, Mike, and especially in pool. You know, and if you're coming off of momentum from winning big matches, listen, beating Tucher and Uski and Kachi, those are solid Europeans, Mike. And no disrespect to Georgie, but if I'm thinking Fraser Patrick can get through against Kachi, I would take a couple games and take him against Georgie. You know, so
the thing is too. I mean, he's not like, we watched Gary Wilson win a couple. Get a little bit of a run a few years ago, but there are a lot of guys tripping over themselves at 9-8, right? But this guy has put some pounding on some people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
He hasn't limped through some of these, a lot of these matches by winning, 9-8 with the other guy scratching on the break in the final rack or anything like that. He's played solid pool, clearly.
Of course, yeah, and that's how you get yourself in this position. But now it's like you're going to be on TV table. You're going to be on. All eyes are going to be on you. You know what I'm saying? And now there's expectations where you're not free rolling. And I don't. Listen, he's not threatening Mosconi Cup yet. But if he were to go and win a couple matches,
threatening Mosconi Cup.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, listen, if this guy goes and gets in a semifinal, man, we're going to be talking about. We're going to be getting him on the show, Mike.
Jason's got to do some worrying because they're not going to put 2 Scots on the same team.
Listen, you ain't taking Jason's spot, buddy. You got to go and win a couple majors before then. That guy's too box office to go and just a win over Georgia ain't going to go and cut it. Not yet, anyway, Mike. Look, it's been a pretty great tournament to this point, Mike. There was some other news, and now we're already an hour through the show, and we haven't even talked about the news over the last couple of years that finally came to a head, which we've talked about in the WPA and Matchroom, Mike.
Right. We've got to set some time aside for that because there's a lot of moving parts in that. I mean, the announcement. I tried to do a little bit of analysis of what was behind some of the, what's in the announcement that people weren't talking about, or what people should be wondering about. So there's a lot to that agreement that I think we can get into. We could probably spend a little more time in a different show for that.
Well, I love the teasers, so
it's a lot to talk about. Just, we could talk about it now, if you want to take another 20, 25 minutes, but I think it's that type of conversation at this point. I mean, the short story is, they've agreed to allow Matchroom's events to be ratified, so which is a soft sanction type of thing. So, when you look at it from the standpoint of the big events, everything's just, okay, we everybody can just play. It gets a little bit fuzzier when you get into regional events. It gets a little fuzzier when you look at the points for WPA and points for Matchroom, and it's a little fuzzier when you get into the World Pool Championship and things like that. So there's a lot more pieces to the puzzle that are worth talking about. I think one of the things interesting is that there hasn't been a single Matchroom post about it. They didn't even post the release, which is very calculated and
No.
I think it's kind of two-sided. I think one is we're not going to draw any focus away from what we've worked our ass off on for this whole week, which is the UK Open, right?
Yeah.
We're not gonna. The other thing we're doing, if we're going to do anything off the UK Open this week, it's going to be sell Mosconi Cup tickets. So keep
Yeah.
the focus on what you're doing. I think they're also trying to send the message, or at least give the impression that, hey, this is, it's great, but we were business as usual regardless. We were going ahead with our stuff regardless. It's great that everybody can play, and now we're still just going ahead with our stuff. And
Look,
and that makes sense to me from a business standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. I don't think it's the way I view it, but we'll discuss that too.
well, that's the line that they've taken in the sand consistently, if nothing else, And so, I one thing that's telling, and sometimes that silence can be pretty loud as well. And I guarantee you that press release that did not.
Don't say radio silence, Mike.
No. That's not what I'm going to say. I'll say that one for the real show whenever we talked about this. But what I will say is that them not having a response just shows that they're co-signing that and they're agreeing to that and that all is well. And Emily's been on a couple of different. She was on the WPA post as well, commenting on there. So they've made peace for now, which is great, and a lot of optimism. It opens things up, Mike, because last year during the World Pool Championship, we saw a guy like Wojciech have a good run, but he wasn't, a WNT pro, so he couldn't really be threatening Mosconi Cup. Look, this opens everything up to anybody now, and it really changes the whole landscape as to the tournament that we look forward to at the end of that year, which is the Mosconi Cup, which is the Reyes Cup, and things like that. So there's a lot of different roads that we can go down here. At the end of the day, I'm really happy they finally came to an agreement, because I love seeing all the best players go and compete, Mike.
It needed to be done, and I'm glad that they took a different approach to it this time and just kept working it out until it got done. No one grabbed their ball and went home in the middle of the negotiations or discussions like they had several times in the past. So, and there's a reason for that. So. Well, no, I mean, I've got opinions on what the reasons are for that.
We'll save it for another show. Are you going to be around tomorrow, Mike, at all by chance?
I will be here. Yeah, I will be here for part of the day tomorrow. Probably about the same time tomorrow.
All right, let's do a show and we'll talk about the UK Open. We'll save the WPA show for at least following up on that for another one. I want to try to get as much done in the next few days as we can, Mike, because I'm going to try to do a Buffaloes preview show. I'm heading out of town next week as well. So a lot of moving parts for sure. You guys can check out all the action at WNT.tv. There's no short of storylines, that's for sure, when it comes to the UK Open.
I mean, there's a lot of, people who could be in the Final Four that we've never really talked about before.
But that's how it was last year, though, Mike, wasn't it? There was like a real surprising mix of the Final Four players in last year's UK
Robbie,
Open.
It was
Fortunsky, right?
It was Fortunsky. It was
what was Mickey in the Final Four? No. I want to say it was another Polish player too. I can't recall, but like you said, I'm gonna be looking forward to seeing how it's gonna shape up over the next 24 hours for sure. So big shout out to all of our sponsors. We could not do the show without them. Mike, thanks as always for coming on. We'll try to get more reaction and coverage of the UK Open and all things pool in the next few days. I'm going to be going live every single day, so make sure and keep your notifications on, and we'll see you